That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It is Commissioner Cooper, and it is week 3 coming up. And what a crazy week 2 we just had. And I know some of you need to hit that waiver wire, including myself. So we got a lot to discuss. We got Doc Miller in for injuries. We're going to talk some winners. We're going to talk some leaders. We're going to talk flops. We're going to talk about Thursday night football. It's time for TSS Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy. Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy. Fantasy. It's time for TSS Fantasy.
You know, the great thing about being a football player is you don't have to take a shower to go to work.
There it is.
That is a great thing tonight, indeed. No Freddie in the building, though, so we're all right. Look, we got a couple of guests in the house tonight for the Waiver Wire edition. First, let's get the introduction started. Welcome to the studio, Chris Fox. He's not what you call a moron. If you caught him on Wake Up with TSS on Sunday, welcome into the studio, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I try not to be a moron. I appreciate being invited on the show. Looking forward to it. Let's get this thing rolling, boys.
We're excited to have you. Facebook user, unfortunately, I wish that would come up. I'd like to shout you out. Appreciate you guys coming in. Yeah, indeed. David, I was going to screw up your last name. I do it every time. Welcome to the studio, my friend.
Hey, thanks, man. And yeah, Chris is only half a moron. He's a Steelers fan, so he's all good there. But Ohio State.
Yeah. Sorry.
A little arch rivalry to start things out. And the wife agreed the not a moron segment was great indeed. I have to say I agree, my dear. All right, we're in the house tonight. Welcome in, guys. We do appreciate you. Well, let's get things started here tonight. Let's pay the bills first. Go to tssfantasy.com. We'll have our rankings up here soon. I didn't get to mine just yet. Probably look for them tomorrow, to be honest, but go ahead. We'll check it out for next week, coming up here in week 3. Also, go to Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code TSS. We'll double that deposit up to $100. So always good stuff there. Jazz Sportsbooks. We got lots of great daily and weekly prizes and all kind of stuff going on with Jazz Sportsbook. So use our promo code there as well. And if you're looking for some championship bling for your fantasy champion, look no further than Pro Am Belts. They have all some great stuff for you. So make sure you get it and check that out. All right. So as we alluded to, a lot of injuries. We know what happened last night. It's been talking about it all day. So let's bring in the doc. I don't want to get all too excited about it, unfortunately, because that was a really devastating injury, Nick Chubb. Let's bring in the doc and talk some inch. The doctor is in, and I just called injuries inch. Check that out. All right, welcome in, my friend. Oh, man, like I said last night, devastating injury to Nick Chubb. I figured that's where we'll start tonight. Let's talk about Nick Chubb and his future.
Yeah, so the image, I think, that captured a lot of attention, aside of the shot to the knee itself, was him sitting on the cart heading off the field. And his face right there, it's just pure devastation, right? I mean, this is a guy who's probably at that point evaluating his entire future. So if we rewind to 2015, I think everybody's aware he had a pretty significant knee injury then. He tore his PCL, his MCL, and his LCL. So 3 of the 4 major ligaments of the knee. This was in 2015 when he was 19. We actually talked about this a little bit in the offseason for sent to the bench. And we went on just to say, it's amazing he was playing at such a high level after that injury 8 years ago, right? So as of this afternoon, he's officially out for the season, going to have surgery, but this is not a surprise to anybody, right? They haven't yet disclosed what structures are going to be repaired or when the surgery is going to be. but it might not be right away. There might be a period of time where we let some of that swelling, some of that real acute inflammation go down before they proceed to do any type of surgery on it. So if we're speculating, that hyperextension injury where the knee goes backwards can injure pretty much any one of those 4 major ligaments. In this case, likely multiple injuries there. So if we look at players who've had this type of injury and not come back from it, at least not come back to a high level, we look at Mackenzie Milton, the UCF quarterback a couple of years ago. We look at Marcus Lattimore playing at South Carolina a couple of years ago. We look at players who have come back from this. 2 come to mind. One's not a football player. Sean Livingston from the Golden State Warriors came back. And also 19-year-old Nick Chubb came back. But we're not dealing with 19-year-old Nick Chubb right now. We're at 27-year-old Nick Chubb. And couldn't have happened to a better guy, and my heart does go out to him.
Yeah, Willis McGahee comes to mind as well. He did come back, but he still wasn't quite the athlete he was, and that was a young, obviously, Willis McGahee as well, as you mentioned. So yeah, it's going to be tough for him to climb back from this. Guys, you have Chris? You had a comment on this?
Well, I wanted to ask the doc because it's 27 as opposed to like say a 33 or a 34. And so being that it happened before, those of us not in the know like yourself, we would think that there's no chance, but this guy's obviously an elite athlete. He is at least 27 as opposed to 30 something. How much is that going to weigh in, increase his ability to at least get back to a playing level?
Yes, I think that works in his favor to an extent, but this injury is not an isolated ACL. I mean, we're looking likely at the PCL, likely because there was this inward force or this valgus force, likely the MCL as well. So I'm a little less hopeful and a little less optimistic given that we have a multi-ligamentous injury. I think the one thing we can maybe be comforted by is that there doesn't appear to be, based on any of the initial reports, any damage to the major artery back there, the popliteal artery. So the great news is he doesn't have any likely long-term damage to the foot and leg, but I don't have any optimism of him coming back at a high level, even though he's only 27.
It's just crazy to see that. I kind of have to, applaud the sports world, the fantasy players, because the focus has been on Nick Chubb and not people's fantasy rosters. And that is, of course, something, from a fun aspect that we do look at and we think about. But all the initial reaction and stuff that we've seen has been for Nick Chubb. It's been in Nick Chubb's favor, prayers and hopes and good vibes and stuff, all that to Nick Chubb. And I just think that's such a great thing, because when you look at a guy like Nick Chubb, he plays at such a high level, and so many athletes do play at such a high level. But in today's, contract money world, you hear so much trash talk, so much, you see the people holding out, you see the guys, trying to look out for themselves. And one of the big, running themes with Nick Chubb is nobody really has ever seen that from him. He's not one of these guys that's trash talking. He's not one of these guys that holds out. He's just a grinder. He goes out. He knows, he happens to have the skill, and he just goes out and uses it to the best of his ability. All accounts, he's, a really great guy, a great teammate. But even from the fans' point of view, it's just really sad to see somebody of that caliber at that talent level, and just to be able to carry themselves the way they do. You always say it couldn't happen to a nicer guy. I don't know the guy personally, but from a sports standpoint, I mean, that's what we're looking at here. It's just really sad.
And as you mentioned, plotting the sports world, like, Joe Buck did a good job last night, just basically like, we're not showing that. I know sitting there, and I talked to my buddy Craig this morning on the phone. He didn't actually see it, but he knew something happened. So we're talking on the phone, and his reaction was the same reaction I had when Joe Buck said it was, I think he used the word catastrophic, something to that effect, to where I went, and so did Craig. When I told Craig that my buddy he had the same like breathtaking, like no, like someone you knew, and it's crazy. But that was like you said, that was the focus was on him as the player, and again, applauding the sports world for that. David, you got anything follow up with that?
Well, it wasn't just us and individuals. I mean, the whole stadium, when they put that up there, the whole stadium had that same reaction. The only thing I have to say about a comeback, again, with this injury being multiple ligaments and having the second time, and he's 27. Unfortunately, the running back landscape these days, where they're just recycling them and not paying them, it's just highly unlikely. He'd have to come back and perform at almost the same level he was for them to. Unfortunately, it's a money business in the end.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Doc. Well, who else we got on the house call tonight?
All right, nothing else is that depressing. Let's move to Saquon Barkley. So early reports were that Barkley was going to be out for up to 3 weeks with a lateral ankle sprain, which media reports today we're calling just a regular ankle sprain, but that's that lateral ankle, not the high ankle that we talk about frequently. But a couple of hours ago, I started seeing reports that he has not been ruled out for Thursday. With that in mind, however, I don't feel personally confident we're going to see him Thursday. I've already moved him to the bench. He's on my roster, but it's not out of the picture that he could play Thursday night. Not counting on it, but it's possible.
Interesting. If you need Matt Breida, although, again, I think I've all heard everyone else, this matchup's not a greatest matchup to throw Matt Breida in your lineup. So, again, I would just kind of hold off on that one. Plenty other guys, and we'll get to that later, that you can sneak in that waiver wire for you. So we'll talk about that later. Okay, Doc, who else we got?
Yeah, Austin Eckler. So ankle sprain kept him out of week 2. And as of now, there's no timeline on his return. I don't think anybody at this point is expecting to see him play at least week 3 and possibly longer, given, again, this no timeline. It's a little concerning for Eckler owners.
It's concerning because he's been one of those guys that have had that injury, history. And then last year, he was balls to the wall and healthy and did great. He's got all these workout videos. So my perception of him changed. And now we seem to be back to square one again. So crazy as that is. And Josh Kelly right now didn't really look all that great. So we'll see how that works out. Who else we got, Doc?
So Odell Beckham Jr. left the game this weekend with an ankle sprain, but it's not expected to keep him out week 3, so that's good news. We got a bunch of guys in concussion protocol, so I'm going to zip through them. Right now, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Waddle, and Logan Thomas, all in concussion protocol. Devonta Adams passed. He will be available for week number 3. So 3 yet to be determined. Watch those reports later.
Yeah, and those head injuries are weird, unfortunately. I think, Brian mentioned on one of the shows, when you're going into practice, if they just can't do simple conditioning without being asymptomatic, you have no shot to come back, quite frankly. So just something to watch out for some of those guys. Jalen Waddle, for example, that came out of really nowhere. I didn't really even notice it, to be honest. So that one was kind of strange. We saw Anthony Richardson, man, he's exciting. And Logan Thomas, we'll talk about him on the waiver wire here in a little bit, but he's somebody to get excited about, and especially if he can come back and he's healthy. He's looking pretty good in this offense, quite frankly. So, all right, Doc, anyone else?
Yeah, so here's somebody who's underperformed this year, Joe Burrow. So offseason concerns about his calf, and now he's a questionable for Monday Night Football in week 3, still with the calf situation. This is a big letdown, for Bengals fans, for Burrow owners. Didn't see this coming and limiting him this far into the season, but it's certainly concerning that he's questionable at this point. Darnell Mooney, knee bruise knocked him out for week 2, should not keep him out for week 3. And lastly, Montgomery from Detroit. He himself said he would need a couple of weeks to recover from his thigh bruise, but he's officially listed at day-to-day. Don't be surprised to see him play this weekend.
Man, oh man, a lot of interesting. Again, we're going to talk about this waiver wire, but a lot of these injuries are causing us to hit this wire early. This is where you make or break your fantasy season. So let's get on it. Doc, thank you so much. We'll see you next week. And good luck, my friend.
Here, guys.
All right, we're going to move on. Let's talk about some weekly leaders. Weekly leaders, indeed. Let's get on it. Well, right now in the QB department, we had some guys that kind of stepped up, and then some guys that, stepped up for fantasy, but not quite for their team. Kirk Cousins, he had a pretty decent fantasy game. He had 36 points, 364 yards, 4 TDs. Daniel Jones, a great game, 33 points as well, 321 yards. Russell Wilson, 31 points. Jared Goff, 28. Josh Allen also had a great night, great day, as well. So again, these QBs are some surprises, some not no surprises. What do you think? Let's go around. Chris, I'll go to you first. Give me a guy you notice out of this weekly leader thing here. What's going on? Give me a guy you like.
Well, for me, it's got to be Kirk Cousins, right? I mean, he's the easy answer. He's the low hanging fruit. He's the only top 10 guy from week 1 to finish in the top 10 in week 2. The interesting thing about this group of quarterbacks this year and this week after week 2, the top 10 quarterbacks in week 2, Kirk Cousins is the only one from week 1. Everybody else had to move up double digits to make it into the top 10. For instance, Daniel Jones at that number 1 spot went up 27 spots. Wilson went up 13. Hurts went up 15. Dobbs, of course, went up 27. Everybody in the top 10 moved up a minimum of 13 spots this week. And then you talk about the top guys from last week moving down. Jordan Love goes down 13 spots. Mac Jones goes down 21 spots. Brock Purdy goes down 14 spots. So the diversity between week 1 and week 2, what it tells us really about the QB position and all the positions is that we're in week 2. Okay, it's still time to overreact. Guys are still gelling. The starters don't really get a lot of work in the preseason, so this is their preseason. We know it takes 3-4 weeks to get the ball rolling. Of course, the one that we're really going to be watching right now is Joe Burrow, because both the Vikings and the Bengals are looking at 0-3, and 0-2 isn't a death sentence, but 0-3 is about as close as it gets.
Yeah, indeed. The law of averages. I spoke about it on Sunday. I said it was going to be Get Right Sunday. It really was the law of average Sunday, because some of those guys, as you mentioned, that were great on week 1 weren't so great in week 2, and vice versa. David, so give me some guys that you want to point out here in the leader group QB spot.
So I like Jared Goff. I feel like he's on the up and up, and he plays in a division where, I mean, there's not really a defense that scares me. Green Bay, maybe a little bit, but 2 games against the Bears and 2 games against the Vikings defense. Their offense looks nice, but their defense isn't stopping anybody or scaring anybody. The one I don't like on here is Daniel Jones. As much as I like his upside, he had to play hero ball against the Arizona Cardinals, who are, looking better than they should, considering they're supposed to be tried to dive on the season here. Tank, right. There you go.
It's kind of why I like him, though, because they're going to be playing from behind all season.
They are. But now, I mean, he just doesn't have weapons. Listen, as much as I like him, he's not Matthew Stafford, all right? He's going against the Niners this year. Stafford, Jones doesn't have somebody named Puka and Tutu to help him out, all right?
True story.
On the bench, he's a sit for me this week against the Niners for sure, and possibly further going forward. Just again because of his team around him, they need to give him more weapons.
Yeah, it's all about matchups. I do like that, Chris Fox. With you gotta like Kirk Cousins again. Got the weapons, as David alluded to, and shitty D. Gotta like Kirk Cousins all the way around. We talked about that preseason as well. Let's move on to the running back position. Brian Robinson Jr., 28 points. Kyrie Williams, 27. DeAndre Swift with 26 earlier in the week. Saquon, 26. Raheem Mostert from America's team, 25 points on the day. Some good stuff here. David, we'll start with you on this one. Give me some guys that stuck out to you in the running back leaderboard.
Well, I'm a little butthurt about Brian Robinson because I had a lot of Antonio Gibson and I had like 1 or 2 shares of Brian Robinson, and I sat them this week as well, and then he went off. So I'm a little butthurt by him. But they're obviously using him. They're giving him the work. It's not a shared backfield like everybody suspected it would be. Kyron Williams also, I mean, the Rams are just looking like they're not as bad as everybody expected them to be. They were supposed to be, I mean, if the Cardinals weren't in that division, they were supposed to be the worst team in that division, and they're not looking that way. Swift, I like him. I don't like his situation. I just feel like no matter what, they're going for the end of the season. We were talking about it earlier. They don't want to just rely on one back. They're not going to run him into the ground. They're going to keep rotating him, which is great for the team, not for fantasy owners.
What about for you, Mr. Fox? Give me some guys on that leaderboard that you
Well, I think I can give you all the guys, and because and what I mean by that is all 5 of these guys, I don't think a single one of them are going to finish as the RB1, and yet they're all in the top 5 this week. Again, the inconsistency between week 1 and week 2 as teams start rolling up. I think the one guy that could be in the top 10 and could be in the conversation for the top 5 is, of course, Kyren Williams, who just kind of walks into the job. Obviously, Sean McVay has some issue with Cam Akers. They don't meet eye to eye. Honestly, I just don't think Cam Akers is that good, and that's probably the biggest issue. And so Kyren, has the job. Cam could have started this week. He could have played, and they just said he's not going to. So, the writing's on the walls. Sean McVay comes out today, said, yeah, trade, sure, let's go. And, Kyren's going to be the guy to watch along with Puka. But when we talk about these running backs, I hope you went out and got some shares of Kyren. I know I did, because he's going to be the number 1 guy in the backfield. And when we get into the Puka talk, we're going to have to talk about Kupp coming back. But Kyren doesn't have that problem. There's nobody breathing down his neck. He's got that job. It's his offense at that running back position. And, oh, by the way, he catches balls. Most 6 of his points this week, actually 10 of his points, 6 receptions, 48 yards. So 10 of his 28 points this week is RB2 in the league. You want your running back to catch the ball. He can do it. And for right now, he's doing it well.
Kyren Williams, wow. I'm all about him, all kind of stock into him. So if he is for some reason in that waiver wire of yours, make sure he's your first priority. And Cam Akers owners, I would just say chill, just wait. The way this running back landscape's working out right now, you never know what lineup Cam Akers lines up in. And hey, who knows? Maybe different place, different leadership, different position. You never know what might turn out. Maybe
Don't
not.
be a moron. Really, Cam Akers. Trade it.
All right, I guess that's coming this week, apparently. All right, let's go to receivers. Keenan Allen. I mean, this is like the old school to start with. Keenan Allen, 31. Mike Evans, 29. T. Higgins made it back with 28. Nico Collins, 27. And I can't ignore Puka Nacua, 29 points. I mean, this kid is on fire for real. What do you think? Anyone sticking out other than Puka Nacua, Chris, at this leaderboard?
I'm going to leave Puka to everybody else. I'm going to let someone else, other people talk about his 15 receptions for 150 yards. I'm going to go with Nico Collins, because Nico Collins is one of those guys that was very polarizing in the offseason. He either was or he wasn't. People were on board or just not on board at all. And he has shown up. He's, number 5 this week. He's in the top 10 for the season. Number 6 is where he sits for the season. CJ Stroud isn't winning Rookie of the Year. CJ Stroud isn't going to blow the doors off, but CJ Stroud did throw the most yards this week at 384. And a lot of that, 226 of those went to Nico Collins for the season. Clearly he's one of the guys. Tank also did well. You got Houston, such a horrible team. You got CJ Stroud, the rookie, on again, such a bad team. And this week you've got 2 Houston receivers inside the top 15, as I think Tank finished 13. This is the type of setup that you want from a fantasy aspect. So you want teams that are going to have to play from behind, that are going to, have to be throwing the ball a lot. They just have to be able to do it well. And so far, Houston is, from a fantasy perspective, in the wide receiver room, they're getting it done. Nico Collins, there he is.
I love it. David, anyone sticking out to you in the leaderboard there?
I mean, Keenan Allen has always been great, in my opinion, as long as he's healthy, and that's been his issue. And Mike Evans, I have as many shares of him as possible. I was a little bit higher on Baker than most people in the offseason. But give me all the Nico and the Tank Dell. I actually am in a few dynasties that I took over that were definitely in need of some help. I have several first-round picks over the next couple of years, and I'm 1-1 because of Houston receivers winning me this week. in a year where I thought I was going to have to tank and just, look towards the next year. So give me them all.
Nice. I love it. I love it. All right, let's go to the tight end position. Let's see on the leaderboard this week. TJ, some of the guys finally, like I said, get right this week. TJ Hawkinson got right with 25 points. Hunter Henry again. It's 2 weeks in a row. And we got Hunter Henry. He is the number one tight end in fantasy, period. Right? 17 points this week. Bart Andrews with 15. Darren Waller back with 13. And Travis Kelce made an appearance with 12. So that again, okay points. Again, the tight ends are all right. But give me a guy that stuck out to you in the leadership board here, David.
It's TJ Hawkinson. I mean, not only was he the number one this week, but again, he's in an offense that is going to have to keep up with the opponents. They're not playing good defense. And Kirk Cousins, for all the naysayers that have bad things to say about him, he's been a consistent top 10 quarterback every year in fantasy. So, yeah, give me all the TJ. I have him in most of my leagues if I don't have Travis.
Nice. Fantasy Jesus had him on one of his segments, and man, if that guy don't look like Jesus himself. Chris, what do you say, my friend?
Yeah, no, I mean, Hawkinson's a great pick. We talked about Cousins already. We talked about them throwing the ball. Hunter Henry is I'm not going to call him so much a surprise. We know what New England likes to do with their tight ends. Some guy named Gronk, if you ever heard of him, I don't know, he's pretty decent. And so now they if Belichick likes to use him and Mac Jones isn't afraid to use him. So you got a big, strong guy that can catch the ball. That's Hunter Henry. So maybe we didn't expect the production, the point values that we're getting out of this. And of course, tight end position is touchdown dependent, but Hunter Henry is getting the touchdowns. I'm not ready to throw his name in with Kelce or Mandrews or even Hawkinson at this point, but he's probably right underneath there. He's in that 4 or 5 spot for right now. And he earned it. And I think it's somebody that is probably going to maintain it throughout the season, just knowing the way New England plays.
Yeah, Logan Thomas, as I was alluding to earlier, was on his way to another big game. He's been targeted a lot. If it wasn't for that injury, I think Logan Thomas would be right up there. So he's somebody we're going to talk about in a minute on waivers, but just someone I noted here. He was up on the leaderboard, just didn't make it high enough on the list. All right, so instead of talking leaders, let's talk some flops.
Can't you morons do anything right? They did their best.
Flip-flops. Flip-flops.
They did their best.
Flip-flops.
Calm down, diddly 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 diddly.
Still one of the best intro musics I think we have. All right, let's get to some notable flops this week. Let's go quarterback position first. Dak Prescott was 17th. Justin Fields, 20th. Joe Burrow, 21st. Tua, 26th, but that was game script. We know what's up. Deshaun Watson was 27th. Trevor Lawrence, 32nd, dead last. And Derek Carr, how did he get 33rd? Who is better than Derek Carr this week? That wasn't even insane. Chris, give me someone out of here that you took note of here as our flop this week.
Well, obviously, Trevor Lawrence coming in at 32 was something of note. I have a lot of shares. I have a lot of shares of Trevor Lawrence, and so I didn't see that coming. We'll see a rematch. We'll see that happen again, probably twice, and I don't think it'll come out like that. That was surprising to me, but the guy I want to concentrate on is Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson does not look good, and this is not the Pittsburgh fan of me. I watched the same game that you guys watched last night. The throws were bad. The throws were off. The reads were bad. The temper was bad. I saw him grab 2 face masks at the end and, shove an official that somehow he didn't get a flag for. The look in his face is anger. It's frustration. And we know from White Men Can't Jump that most people don't play well angry. And he just looks angry and frustrated, and he's playing like it. And, kudos to the Pittsburgh defense for keying on it and stepping up and doing what they needed to do to win that game, because the offense ain't doing them any favors. But Deshaun Watson, we wanted more. A lot of people drafted him. A lot of people were expecting more. Honestly, I think it's a time. now's the time to get rid of him while you can, especially with Chubb out and the way he played last night. I'm real worried for Cleveland fans. And again, that's not the Pittsburgh fan. It's what I saw last night. And you guys all watched the same thing.
I'm just going to point out, I'm just going to say, I don't disagree, but I just want to point out a minute ago, you just said, it's week 2, right? All right, Dave, what do you think?
Listen, it's obvious the problem with Deshaun. All right, he's too tight. He's not getting his massages, so he's too tight. He's wound up. All right. I have 0 shares of Deshaun, and I'm really glad about that through week 2 anyway. But the one that kills me on this list for me is definitely Trevor Lawrence. I don't see the Chiefs as a great defense. I don't see him as a bad defense, but not a great defense. And there's too many weapons there for Trevor Lawrence to be number 32. I have him in probably just about every league I could get him in. I have him winning a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, kind of hype for Trevor Lawrence. So hopefully for me, he could pick it back up. And of course, everybody's hoping Burrow picks it up. But I think with Burrow, we saw that last year, no preseason at all. And he was slow the first couple of weeks. And we saw it in the second half where they started to pick it up. I'm actually more worried about one of our receivers coming up here. So we'll talk about that then. But
and I got to give an honorable mention, if you will, not that you want to be mentioned to your boy Tua there, Jason, but I do it also to give him a positive contrast. Tua goes from number 1 down to 26. I think the biggest drop this week was Tua in the rankings and game script. And again, like, it is week 2. I'm not necessarily worried about the guy, but the difference here is that Tua is still 6th in the league, whereas Lawrence is 23rd. Both those guys finished in the top 10 week 1. After the week 2 disaster, you see, where your game script, where your production really differed with the fall off again, with Tua still maintaining that top 10 overall, and Lawrence dropping all the way to 23.
Not to get all excited about Tua, but I'm just going to say one thing. That throw at the end of the first half to Braxton Berrios is what we call a dime drop. There is nowhere else he could put that ball. They get right there at the goal line, bro. It is America's team time, baby. All right, let's go to the running back position this week. Josh Jacobs, 25th, not too shabby, but not too good either. Javonte Williams, 30. Miles Sanders struggling at 31st. A.J. Dillon, this was a surprise against that Atlanta defense, who actually is pretty surprisingly okay. He was 33rd this week. Travis Etienne, 38. Dameon Pierce also been struggling, 42. Alexander Madison been struggling, 48. Tyler Algier this week at 49. He had a big week last week. Breece Hall, number 69, and Dalvin Cook, 78, that vaunted jet run. But again, winning against Cowboys D, so what are you going to say? All right, what do you think, David? Who stuck out to you here on the flops?
I'd like to know where Najee Harris ended up.
That's true. I'd say maybe I didn't even see him because he was so far down the list.
Listen, Najee is falling so far, and it's just astonishing to me. And some of it, might be game script. We've been playing from behind in both games. But, Jaylen Warren looks more electric in that offense. I think the biggest surprise to me, although, again, it could be attributed to not much of a preseason because he was on holdout, is Josh Jacobs. Dameon Pierce, they're throwing too much, and that's the problem there for him. Javante's coming off an injury. Some of these guys I had no faith in. I wasn't a Madison fan coming in. Algier is just frustrating. I did pick up a few shares of him because I wasn't as high on the Bijan train as everybody else. I was wrong. I admit that already. I do have a few shares of him, and I have some leagues where I have both of them on the same team, and now I'm just confused as to who to put in. I start Bijan every time, but do I even put Algier in? They're deeper leagues, but
it's one of those. He's going to get his carries. Algier's going to get his carries. Bijan's going to take that role. Algier's one of those sell guys, I think, right now. Sell him while you can. Najee is 45 this week, 47 overall, by the way. For me, the running back position, the guy that I am looking at, and you brought him up already, David, is Madison. And the reason he stands out to me is because obviously he's the number 1 guy. Minnesota put their faith in him. He's performed well in the absence of Cook. I said there's no reason that he can't get the 1,300 yards that Cook used to get. It's not happening, and it has to do with the game script that's getting dictated to Minnesota by their horrible defense, the fact that they have to throw the ball so much. But he's also a pass catching back, and they're not really throwing it to him as well. Week 1, he finishes 16. This week, he finishes at running back like 48. 28 yards on the ground, 11 yards receiving. I mean, those are not numbers, even with Minnesota playing from behind as much as they are. Those are not numbers for an RB1. And you have to wonder how long Madison and Minnesota, how long Minnesota's going to stick with Madison putting up this kind of output.
Yeah, he's definitely struggling to say the least. Receivers, Amari Cooper, 29th. Tyreek, 32nd. Chris Olave, 33rd. Michael Pittman, 37. Stephon Diggs, 37th. DK Metcalf, 39. Jalen Waddle, 43. Chris Godwin, 51. These are all like guys that people were taking early. Jamar Chase, 61. Hopkins, 62. Ayuk, he was injured, so my bad on that one. He was 65th. AJ Brown, 69th. Jahan Dotson, big struggle here, 81st. Calvin Ridley, 82, and Romeo Dobbs, 83, just to name a few. David, I know you. I wanted to go to you first because you wanted to talk about your receiver. Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah, it's Jamar Chase. T. Higgins in week 1 had, I think it was 8 targets. He had no catches, but obviously that's who Joe Burrow is looking to. And then when they started looking good in the second half, he wasn't looking for Jamar. He was looking for T. Higgins, which is why T. Higgins is on, the top 5, and Jamar Chase is way down in the 60s. And that worries me a little bit because Chase is the one, people were going, some people number 1 overall in their drafts for Jamar Chase. I think as far as Ayuk's injury, he'll be fine. He is playing the Giants this week, and they just made the Cardinals look like Super Bowl contenders, so he'll be all right.
All right, what do you say, Chris?
My guy's Calvin Ridley dropping from 6 all the way down to 82, and it's not because the lack of talent. What worries me from the fantasy perspective is that Christian Kirk got 11 targets this week. Whereas Ridley got the 8 last week. And so what I see here is a wide receiver by committee evolving, and that's obviously not what you want. You want both guys to eat. You want even targets across the board. And, kudos to Jags, the Jag team and Jags fans for doing what they need to win and recognizing where they got the matchups. But from a fantasy perspective, it's only week 2, but from a fantasy perspective, we're getting in a Seattle Seahawks situation real quick. Is it going to be Metcalf? Is it going to be Lockett? But it's never going to be both of them because that's not what we want. That's not what we drafted this year.
Right, 100%. The guy that sticks out to me a lot, though, is Jahan Dotson. I mean, we came into this season. I know I got a lot of shares of Jahan Dotson thinking, hey, this guy's going to bust out. Right now, just not looking good. But week 1 struggled. Week 2 has struggled. The offense, of course, in general has struggled, but they're playing good defense as a Commanders, as a unit, running the football. Brian Robinson, big surprise, did a lot of catches out of the backfield as well. So a big surprise to me is Jahan Dotson. I'll just point out some of the tight ends because the is what it is, really. Evan Ingram, 13th, just fell out of the top 12. Not horrible. Still got you some okay points. Dalton Kincaid, he's 21st. He's been a kind of big disappointment. Dalton Schultz, talk about a big disappointment. He's 28th. And all those targets that little whittle Mike Gesicki got, he was still 29th. Little bitch. George Kittle, he was 31st. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? Luke Musgrave, he actually was 34th as well. That offense struggled. Dallas Goedert, 37th on the week. So there's some guys that have been struggling in the tight end position. But, as Chris alluded to in his moron segment, stop worrying about the tight end position.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the waiver wire.
Waiver wire.
What is up, Facebook user? How's it going? All right, let's get to that waiver wire. Talk about some guys we want to pick up this week because we know you need it. All right, let's go on. Let's just go right to the running backs. quarterbacks are what they are. Right now, people are hurting at the running back position. So let's just get real with it. Chris, I'll just go to you first. Give me your number one waiver wire target. If you got another guy, I mean, obviously Jerome Ford is going to be on everyone's list, but give me some other guys that you might be interested in as well.
Look, you want other guys other than Ford? I'm sorry, I can't help you because there are no other guys except Ford. Look, smash Ford, spend your freaking fab. Don't waste all of it. But if you need help, because he's going to be like, people are going to tell you about Cam Akers getting traded. People are going to tell you about Kareem Hunt coming back. He's not coming back. He left for a reason. But Ford is going to be the guy, and he earned it. I mean, they're going to run him. They're going to give him a chance to lose that job. And from what I saw last night, he is going to hold on to it. The Steelers defense, say what you want about their offense, but their defense last night was dialed in and they were ready to go. And Ford was still finding ground. He was finding holes. He was getting yards. He was doing good catching the ball. Might lose a little bit on the goal line with Strong, but you're not going to lose a lot. Ford is the running back pickup on the wire this week. You can also go over to the Rams and try and get Kyren. I seriously doubt he's out there. And of course, you can get yourself a short play at the Chargers with Eckler's backup. As Doc said, it doesn't look like Eckler's going to be back. There's no timetable. So if you can grab him, that might be a great pickup at the running back position as well. Do not grab Gus Edwards, David. I swear to God, don't say Gus Edwards.
I'm not going to say Gus Edwards. I'm going to say somebody who's not even on this list, and that's Tony Jones Jr. For the Saints. Jamal Williams is looking like he won't be back before Alvin Kamara, and that leaves, all of the running back work in New Orleans to somebody. And Tony Jones looked good and looked electric. Yeah, it was against the Panthers defense, but he's been available every league where I went where Ford was there. Jones was there as well. And Ford, you're going to have to fight for. Jones, you can probably just sneak him on there for free.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that's the nice play this week to kind of get you through. I do like that. Zach Moss looked like he was getting all the love, so to speak, from that Colts offense. Now, Jonathan Taylor comes back in a couple weeks, but for those who have Saquon,
does he?
For a
That's
couple
what I was
weeks,
going to say. Does he?
Say again? Oh, yeah, that's true. Who knows? But so another could be one of those buys that could turn into something later. But, again, if you have Saquon down, as we mentioned, Matt Breida's the backup, but why would you want to throw in Matt Breida against the 49ers? Doesn't make much sense. Gus Edwards, we talked about earlier, and Kareem Hunt, I threw in here as one of those guys that's out there right now. Could land up on a squad, and it could be, as David mentioned, somebody you don't even have to use any fab or waiver wire status on. Just go ahead and grab him just in case he pops on.
I've got him in multiple leagues. 100%.
Never know. All right, let's go to the receivers. Dave, we'll go to you. Give me a receiver that you're looking at this week.
So I'm in a lot of deeper leagues, and the only one that I can find available out of these ones listed, because everybody jumped on the Puka train last week, everybody on with the Nico Collins, is Josh Reynolds. And I like it. We've seen a lot of receivers lately break out, and where they look like a number one receiver. If you take away the actual number one receiver on that team, they fall off like Juju when he had AJ Brown, or not AJ Brown, Anthony.
Allen Robinson.
No, he's talking about Antonio Brown.
Antonio. Yeah.
Oh, Antonio Brown. Yeah.
Juju looked like he was the number one receiver. You took him away from Antonio, and he fell back to his normal spot. But that's the situation that Reynolds finds himself in with Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side of the field. And this offense is plugging away at a pace where they can support two number one receivers. So Josh Reynolds is the one I was able to find on a few of them.
And Amon, I wanted to bring up to Doc, suffering a little bit of turf toe, possibly. So could be something that hobbles him a little bit up. Josh Reynolds been money 2 weeks in a row. Again, when you talk about fantasy, for me, it's about consistency. It doesn't get any more consistent than week 1 and week 2, as we're in already doing 2 weeks. So, all right, Chris, give me somebody else you point out here.
Yeah, Josh Reynolds is obviously the guy I think that's actually available. But my number 2 guy is Tank Dell out of Houston, because Houston, like we talked about, is playing from behind every single game. Stroud puts up the most yards this week, 384, almost 400 yards. Ridiculous, even if it is against Indianapolis. Indianapolis does not have the worst pass defense in the NFL. I'm not putting them in the best, but 384 yards. But the interesting part, the thing that really kind of takes it home for me about Tank. We know Nico Collins is a force. We know he's the guy. Nico Collins got 9 targets, went 7 of 9. Tank Dell got 10 targets. He went 7 of 10. So Stroud's definitely looking his way. If you like Nico Collins, then you have to like Tank Dell, and he's someone that you might be able to get this week.
You won't be able to get him in any league that I'm in. I already have him.
I'm a smash on Josh Reynolds as well. How do you not like this offense? And especially if Amron is really dealing with a little bit of turf toe. I mean, I think that's a smash to snag him in that high-powered offense easy all day. Tight ends, I'll just run through it. Basically, I mean, if Hunter Henry is out there, go grab him. I know Dolphins defense is what it is. I mean, they've notoriously been bad against tight ends. But, again, it's consistency. We talked about it. Hunter Henry has been the most consistent tight end in fantasy, period, right now. So go snag him up. I'm not benching him. I'm not benching Travis Kelce for him, but I definitely would snag him if I'm streaming tight ends. Zach Ertz, also, he's back in the mix. Trust me, he's been one of those fantasy guys that's been consistent, getting targeted. So Zach Ertz is another go get. Logan Thomas, as I mentioned earlier, maybe not somebody for this week, but he's getting targeted a lot in this offense. He's had times where he's been fantasy relevant, unfortunately been hobbled by injury. So, but again, not too bad to take a snag on. I went through the list of weekly leaders, and your 4th or 5th guy is getting you very little bit of points. So take a stab at it. You never know. Somebody getting targeted a lot. You gotta like it. Let's go to some streaming D's for this week. Chris, I'll go to you. Give me a defense you want to stream and win this week.
It's got to be because the Jets obviously are nice, a nice matchup against the Patriots, but you got to be able to get them in order to stream them. And I don't think the Jets are going to be out there. So when we talk about a streaming defense, I'm trying to get guys, teams that are going to perform well. Of course, anybody playing Arizona, don't count what happened last week. The Giants defense is just really that bad. And so Arizona was be able to take advantage of that. So whoever's playing Arizona this week is the Cowboys. You're not going to be able to stream that defense either. You want to play them. So a defense that you're going to be able to go out there and actually pick up and play with this week. Let's go with maybe the Lions against the Falcons. I kind of like that matchup because the Lions are at home. The Lions don't have a fantastic defense. And I also like the Titans. The Titans have a fantastic run defense. We know what just happened in Cleveland. It's going to be Watson forced to throw the ball. And for what I saw last night, that's not going to go well. So maybe streamable defenses you can actually find play for a week. I kind of like the Titans this week.
I like that. David, who you like to stream this week?
Well, side note on the tight ends, Zach Ertz, don't pick him up unless you're in a PPR league, because while he's getting a lot of volume, he's getting about a yard a target. So, if you're in a PPR league, go for it. Otherwise, I'd leave him alone. As far as defenses, mine really depends on Anthony Richardson. If he is out, the Ravens defense should handle business there at home against the Colts for sure. And I might go, especially if Burrow really is as banged up as people are saying, I might go with the Rams defense.
Not a bad get. Also, America's teams playing Russell Wilson and his struggles down there. I can foresee them struggling down there, and it's nice and staying hot. And also a good streaming D this week, the Seahawks versus the Panthers. Again, that Panthers defense been struggling. Get them at home. Justin Herrera has joined us just in time.
There he is.
Thursday night breakdown. Justin Jesus Herrera, welcome into the studio, sir.
Still working on some audio over there.
How's it going, fellas?
There he is.
Great, my friend. Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations. Newly married. How's it feel, sir?
Congratulations.
It feels like another day in paradise right now. Paradise meaning being a happily married man now. So yeah, that's good stuff.
Heard that.
Nearby, we understand.
She must be watching. All right, let's get it started. He's here for the right kind of reason. We got the Giants against his Niners. Weather 69 degrees, partly cloudy. Looks like it'll be a nice night. The series is tied 21-21. The 49ers last won this matchup in 2020. 36-9. Ugh. Now, on defense, the Giants, they're 16th against fantasy QBs, 19th versus running backs, 12th versus receivers, and 14th versus tight ends. On the 49ers side, they are 7th against fantasy QBs, 18th against running backs, 25th against receivers. I couldn't believe this stuff I was looking up. 11th versus tight ends. All right, so let's go around the room. Chris, talk about the matchup. Give me a winner and give me some guys you like for fantasy in the matchup.
Yeah, the winner's easy, obviously. It's going to be the Niners. This is not any surprise to anybody. I'm sorry, Giants fans. Look, I feel your pain, but, this is the Niners, and they're playing well right now. And you're right. I mean, the Niners are tied third against the run, third best against the run, but they are 23rd against the pass right now. And that's something a lot of people are not looking at. Look, Puka was a guy that I knew I was going to play this week, despite it was San Francisco, because San Francisco has really struggled against a slot receiver. The good news here is that the Giants don't have any receivers, and now they could be without their running back as well. This is going to be all Niners. It's not going to be pretty. If you have a Niner, go play him. Talk about waiver wire. Grab anybody in a Niners uniform that's going to hit the field and play him, because they all got a shot to score a touchdown in this one. The Giants defense is absolutely ridiculously horrible. On the other end, with that pass weakness of the 49ers, despite the fact that the Giants don't have any receivers, I do still like Daniel Jones. If Daniel Jones is a super flex option for you, I do like playing Daniel Jones in this one. Number one quarterback this week, up from 27 though, but I do like Daniel Jones on the other side of the ball. But Niners play them all.
Chris, don't think I didn't catch that. It's not going to be Purdy, indeed. All right, David, what do you think? How did this matchup? Give me a winner and guys you like in the matchup.
I'm sorry, am I supposed to contribute something else? Because, I agreed with everything Chris said. There's not much else to hit. Even if Saquon's in, I don't really play him, coming off an injury and going against this defense. Nobody on I'm not playing any Giants this week. I'm plugging in everybody who's a starter at least, and maybe even some backups for San Fran. It's not going to be pretty.
Well, he came in for it. Let him bring the hammer down. What do you think, Justin, for this matchup?
Yes, I'll agree with these guys right now. I'll say this. The reason that the 49ers got exposed last week is because Sean McVay knows them very well and knows that the quick throws are going to work very well. Listen, how many passes were for more than 10 yards? Not many. He went for quick slants. He went for quick digs, curls all damn day long. Puka Nacua was great in that Cooper Kupp role. And Cooper Kupp always does really well against us, but he's lost in the last 9 matchups for a reason. And that's because they can't sustain it. Once the pressure gets there, Stafford flounders. So on to this game, I do agree. I like Daniel Jones for the Giants. Here's the reason why. 49ers always struggle because they bring sometimes too much pressure, too much of that freaking chaotic energy to the pressure game, to where they do kind of let running quarterbacks go a little bit. A lot of running quarterbacks have had some good games against this team. We're talking Lamar Jackson. We're talking Justin Fields. I don't know. Daniel Jones is not any of those guys, but he has some traits to make something special. And without Saquon Barkley, he's going to have to tap into all of that. Plus, Brian Daboll is not an idiot. He knows how to study tape, and he knows how to exploit a weakness in a defense. As far as the Giants' offense, do not be surprised if Isaiah Hodgins is okay going forward. He started to wake up this past game. He caught 4 balls, 48 yards, and a touchdown. Would not be surprised if he pulls a Josh Reynolds here, maybe gets like 4 to 6 catches and like 40-plus yards. Okay, start for a flex if you have him. And then Darren Waller, I'd throw him in there. he looked really good against the Cardinals in the second half. And guess what? The tight end position is so shit right now that you could just use 10 points and you'd be just fine. So if you got Darren Waller, do not sit him on your bench. Try him out there. He is an elite receiving tight end. And Daniel Jones is going to be trying to pepper him all day long without Barkley. On the other side, I agree 100% with David. Put everybody in, even put the backups. Here, the word right now out of San Francisco is that Elijah Mitchell got no touches, and Kyle Shanahan was kind of a little bit, peeved off by that. He wanted to get Christian McCaffrey out of the game. He wants Elijah Mitchell in there. So this might be one of those rare games where DFS-wise, throw Elijah Mitchell in there, because if the Niners blow him out, Elijah Mitchell is going to be getting a lot of touches. And Elijah Mitchell with the ball in his hands is a very explosive running back. He just does not last very long on the field, but you're damn sure going to get something out of him for that one game. Also, if I'm a Brandon Ayuk owner right now, I am not looking good. I am thinking about an option that is outside of him, because it looks like he probably will not be suiting up. He has a bad shoulder injury, and I don't think that they're going to want to test it against this New York Giants team. This looks like a game that they can win easily with Debo, some Kittle love, and Christian McCaffrey. So I don't think they're going to be putting him out there and in harm's way.
I think I just thought of something while you were talking. A little new segment we're going to call Justin's Niners Nuggets. I absolutely love it. Drop the hammer down. We are all going even our guests are going Niners. So that we got it right. Now the Giants will win, right? No, just kidding. This would be the easiest one of the night. All right. Well, before you guys go to bed tonight, you got to put in those waiver wire requests. And, I know you got some names in mind, but the question you got to ask yourself is, are they sophisticated enough? We're going to find out right now. Our boy, Andrew Duke, Mr. Mallard, Sophistication Station.
Welcome to Sophistication Station. Hello, and welcome into another episode of Sophistication Station. My name is Andrew Duke, aka Mr. Mallard, and this week we have yet again some more injuries that are going to affect who we are looking to pick up off the waiver wire to keep our teams as classy as possible. So we are going to start off with Adam Troutman. With Greg Dulcich hitting the IR in Denver, Adam Troutman's going to step to the forefront for a coach in Sean Payton who he has played with before and should see some success and a good amount of targets from Russell Wilson in that offense. So Adam Troutman will be under 50% owned in your leagues, and all of these guys will be under 50% owned in ESPN leagues, so there should be a good chance they're available for you. Obviously, the big injury this week was Nick Chubb going down on Monday Night Football last night. That leaves Jerome Ford, who has already been announced as the lead back for this coming week. And I do think it's key that they say lead back and not just starting back, because Jerome Ford really is the last option they have there. So otherwise, if they bring in a Kareem Hunt like that, expect Jerome Ford to get the lion's share of the carries. He will be the hottest waiver wire ad this week, so get ready to spend and get ready to get him quick. And then Rashid Shaheed is someone who just keeps getting involved through these first 2 weeks. Look for him down in New Orleans. We'll see if it is sustainable with Derek Carr at quarterback, but right now he could be a sneaky fill-in flex play for you. And then Marvin Mims, also in Denver, with Troutman, is just athletic. They're getting him the ball. He's a boom or bust, big play kind of guy. So you're going to get 0 or you're going to get 10 plus, but he's the kind of guy that you might need to take a shot on in flex to handle some upcoming bye weeks or injuries. And then someone who should be a more consistent flex play for you, maybe even approaching wide receiver 3 territory, would be Josh Reynolds in Detroit. He's the clear number 2 option for Jared Goff, and that offense wants to throw right now as they still work Jahmyr Gibbs into the fold. He's seen 13 targets through the first 2 weeks, and he's going to continue to be consistent for you if you get him. Stay classy, my friends, and once again, I am Andrew LeDuc, a.k.a. Mr. Mallard, here on Sophistication Station.
Josh Reynolds, as sophisticated, looked like an 80s villain from one of those, like, maybe like Escape from LA movies. All right, let's go around said room. Chris, where can we find, subscribe, get all your great content, my friend? Thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, the best place to find it, of course, is at the Fantasy Sports Corporation. Go to their channel at the Fantasy SC on Twitter and find all my amazing stuff, because that's all they do is amazing over there. If you just want to isolate my own stuff, you can look me up there at the bottom at that effing show. We have the channel at the same spot, Instagram, all the same places, and we put out some nice stuff every Tuesday morning. We go live and review your fantasy weekend. Come join us sometime. We'll have an effing good time.
That's effing right. David, where can we find, subscribe, get your great stuff, and thank you again for joining us, sir.
Yeah, so we do football card breaks over on Facebook at Genesis Fantasy or Genesis Card Breaks, and anything I post to Twitter will be at Genesis_Fantasy.
Make sure you follow, subscribe. We're all of David's great stuff. Justin, we know where we can find you all the time. And again, once again, congratulations on your successful marriage. We appreciate you. All right, we're out of here. Don't forget, tomorrow night, we got a little champs or chumps going on. It's on again. We're going Thursday night, Giants. We got Nikki coming back in, representing the Giants, and our friend Gina repping the Bay for the 40. It's going to be a cat fight tomorrow night for Judge Jordan. And then Friday, of course, as usual, we're going to break it on down for you. And then on Sunday, of course, visit Fantasy Jesus, and we're going to wake up with us on Sunday. So get ready, guys. Get your waiver wire request in. We appreciate you, and we are out.